Are those jingle bells I hear, Amy?
The holidays are over. You're going to give me the post-holiday blues, Eugene.
Well, we're recording this before the holidays, so sorry, future Amy.
Okay, well, we'll see how she feels when she's back from vacation. But let's kick off our RFA Insider Year in Review episode.
Woohoo! Okay, so on today's episode, we'll play back some of the best moments of each episode from 2024, the first year of RFA Insider.
Ugh, cringe.
Why cringe?
I think we were pretty raw in the beginning. Can we maybe start with episode 7?
Nope. Well, don't worry. It'll be a chance for us to see how much we ourselves have grown since the beginning. So let's start out with episode 1, From Russia with Legos. Episode 1. This is the pilot episode of the RFA Insider podcast.
That was Eugene, and I'm Amy. Today, coming up on RFA Insider,
we'll talk to Jamin Anderson from the Korean service, who made an excellent report about a Russian travel blogger who was among the first foreign tour to North Korea in 4 years.
They actually warned the tourists, basically you may not have hot water at all.
Right.
North Korea or the
in North
agency?
Korea, even in the agency warned the tourists.
Yeah, it's not that you're not allowed to have it, but there's a possibility that the place where you're staying will not have.
I see.
So bring extra clothes if you want to stay warm.
And also no heaters, so you will need to have a lot of clothes.
Yeah. So you're basically, if you're going to go to North Korea with this Russian tour company, you're going to have to rough it possibly in certain situations.
Managing expectations.
Yes. But a lot of people just want to go because it's like a remnant of communism, and especially if you're from Russia, a lot of people, they might have experienced the last part of the Soviet Union or have been born after it even. And so they want to see what things were like. The perfect place to go would be North Korea. Okay, so another thing, with your discussion with Ilya, you talked about this plastic building block toy that he bought for his son as a souvenir that we can't say is Legos, but which he kept referring to as Legos. But then you went to go talk to the Lego company afterwards to discuss that.
Yeah.
And so what did Lego have to say?
So I was wondering, if the Lego group is aware of North Korea producing that kind of toys.
Yeah, so it was like a Lego of like a rocket ship, I guess.
Yeah, like a missile, right?
all of the things that they made toys of this company, which was a Sangmyeong or something like, they made like tanks and like missiles and
all military
themed stuff.
Mm-hmm. And then the Lego group made it very clear that they had absolutely no association with North Korea, of course, and then no association with the product in question.
So I wonder though, has there ever been, by the actual Lego company, do they do actually war themed things at all? I mean, they'd have like a medieval series which has swords and like horses and stuff like that.
So I found a very similar one, the rocket one.
Oh, the rocket one, yeah.
But as far as I know, they don't have actual military-themed ones.
Episode 2. The episode was so successful that we've been picked up and given the green light. So congratulations. Of course, when I say it was so successful, I'm using air quotes. But at any rate, the pilot became episode 1, and we are now currently doing episode 2.
I feel like surely having a second episode is some marker of podcast success.
Yes. Yeah. Over the past few weeks, we've been reporting about this out of Tibet, where there are more than 1,000 Tibetans, including monks, arrested over the construction. They were protesting the construction of a dam project that would destroy at least 6 Buddhist monasteries and forced 2 villages to relocate. This is a rare act of defiance. The residents are taking to the streets.
The Derge County, the township is Wombuting Township.
Okay. Some of the more striking images that we got out of Tibet, there's one where there's a monk clad in red who lies on the streets, and it looks like the authorities are trying to pick him up and forcibly move him away, and the onlookers are wailing in despair.
Yeah, I think this was one of the first visuals that we got after the protest. This was on Feb 20th. And I think that image of the monk with both his thumbs up that you can see as he's wailing and lying and kneeling before the Chinese official has become almost iconic, if I may call it that, because in the Tibetan culture, when you have your thumb up, it literally means that you're begging someone, you're pleading with them. And in this case, he had both his thumbs up, and you can see that, and it's being shared across social media, across Tibetan communities, because that picture has become proof of the situation on the ground.
Well, thank you for sharing that aspect. I think that's a detail that a lot of our viewers would miss.
For sure, I didn't know that.
Episode 3.
So, unsurprisingly, the taste of bear bile can induce vomiting if you have it. It's supposedly very fishy and bitter. So people usually take it as like a pill or a powder, but you can also rinse your eyes, like eye drops with bear bile.
So you're saying that if you ingest it, though, if you wanted to stop yourself from vomiting, you'd have to bear down and try not to vomit, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
As you can guess, while bear bile benefits humans, it's not great for the moon bears, who are now endangered due to poaching. So last week, Lao authorities raided an office in Laos and rescued 16 baby moon bears. The month before, in February, 2 other moon bears were rescued in Laos.
So you could say they barely made it out alive. Okay.
Case in point, the man responsible for trafficking those bear cubs is a Chinese national, and he has a big history of trafficking wildlife. So while the office was raided, he escaped and is still on the run right now.
Okay. So I wonder, when they raided the office, did they find any evidence, or was it completely bare?
They did arrest his wife, who is not talking, but they haven't found the man responsible. So.
Okay. Well, thank you, Amy. That was a very good story.
Thank you, Eugene, for the bear puns.
Okay, all right. Episode F. Superstition about 4 being unlucky. People actually do believe this.
So this stems from Chinese. Okay, let me invoke my tones. Where 4, 4, sounds like the word for death. 4.
I see. So it's just a different tone. So in Japanese, both characters are read as shi in onyomi, though there are other pronunciations. And in Korean, both words are pronounced sa. The character for death sounds like the number 4. So this is the reason that buildings in Asia often don't have a 4th floor sometimes. They either skip it or they replace the digit with the letter F.
Thus, to keep the rest of our recording going hopefully smoothly, we'll informally dub this episode 3B, or F. But at any rate, it's time for another edition of Podcast Free Asia.
I can't even read this shit. Oh my gosh. Let me see. Where are we? Okay. So, in the second half... You know what? Forget it. So in the second half of today's show, we were going to feature Chunka, which is a pseudonym, but he wants to distort his voice and hide his identity. So I brought in that awesome Darth Vader mask. But it's a little bit too cumbersome, so I think we'll just have to do that in post. Anyway.
You don't know the power of the dark side.
Yeah.
Can you say, Luke, that's factually incorrect?
Luke, that's... Actually, since we're talking about fact-checking, Darth Vader never said, Luke, I am your father. Did you know that? Yeah, the line is, no, I am your father.
No.
So he never said that. Yeah, it's like the Mandela effect thing. I don't know if you've ever...
There's no gravitas to that.
No, because it's like Obi-Wan never told you what happened to your father. So he told me enough. He told me you killed him. So, no, I am your father. So there's gravitas to it, but the line is often misquoted. It's one of the many lines in movies that are misquoted, just like in The Wizard of Oz, Dorothy never says, hey, Toto, I don't think we're in Kansas anymore. Like, she never said that, but for some reason it's always attributed to her. But anyway, we're not talking about science fiction and pop culture and movies, unfortunately, today. Episode 5.
Myanmar, where the Karen National Union and rebel allied forces took control over the last Junta battalion, effectively gaining control over the entire city of Myawaddy on Thursday morning. Now, following this capture, there were roughly 200 Junta soldiers sheltering near the bridge that you can see behind me.
So today, we're going to discuss the latest developments and a lot of background information regarding the civil war in Myanmar.
Myawaddy right now is relatively quiet and no fighting at all. And it seemed like the Baekhyun was occupied by the ethnic Karen groups who is previously allied with the military junta. And now they say they are independent. The Thug group is taking control of the city. That way, Thailand can trade Burma.
Okay, so I'm sorry, I'm This is a very multifaceted situation going. You said one faction used to be aligned with the junta, and now they're aligned with the opposition.
No, they don't align anyone.
Oh, okay.
But there's like 7,000 strong ethnic militia in the city.
Okay, so they're currently the ones holding Myawaddy.
Yeah.
Okay.
You'd have to read a lot of the context to even begin to understand it. So each of these rebel groups or ethnic armed groups are acting in their own interest. Usually that's because they want to be their own entity or to have self-determination.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So let's hypothesize then. What would happen if the junta is defeated? You'd have the victors, which would be the PDFs and the various ethnic groups, and these are all separate entities. Would it be possible for them to form a unified government, or would they just start to find the differences between themselves and start fighting with each other?
I don't think they will fight against each other, but they won't be unifying very easily. But generally, they go farm. If the junta was defeated, they could found a unifying government, but still there's a several area needs to be negotiated or adjusted, such as power sharing and autonomy. Who will get how much and who will be how much control. And also, since this is the country and people who were divided since the British colonial era, 100 years of division, they don't trust each other easily. Mm. And it's not easy to found a unifying government, but that will take time.
Episode 6. North Korea propaganda song that praises the leader Kim Jong-un as a fatherly figure. It's called 친근한 어버이, which means friendly parent, or in this case, friendly father. So let's take a listen.
He has a warm-hearted smile that's like your mother's. He is benevolent like your father. He holds his 10 million children in his arms and takes care of us with all his heart.
Okay, I won't bore you with more of that. So the main vocalist in this story is Kim Ryu-kyung. I have problems with RY sounds, you know that, right?
And then, oh no, but it's hard because it follows with the kyung.
Yeah. So if she were South Korean, her name would be Kim Yoo-kyung. But she's North Korean, so it's Kim Ryu-kyung. I notice I have to force that out because I have problems with that. If this song is a big hit, which it appears it will be, then we'll see more of Miss Kim in the future. And I was intrigued, so I watched some of her other stuff, and she's an amazing singer who I really have to wonder what her career would be like if she were born somewhere else.
Eugene is a stan.
Okay, so the music video is also kind of extra. No cap, fam.
I am facepalming for a second time.
I'm trying to appeal
episode.
to the Gen Z listeners out there. Sorry. The video shows image after happy image of North Koreans, people going about their daily lives and singing the song. Has soldiers and police and bus drivers, factory workers, children commuting to school, nurses in the maternity ward, old ladies who are missing their teeth, sailors, surgeons, flight attendants, pilots, and basically every single productive member of society is pumped to sing the praises of their savior, Kim Jong-un. And the production values of this video is really high. Like, everyone looks happy, and it makes the place look like it's really fun and a happy place to live. And you just want to move there because everybody's happy and all the time. And,
yeah, I just want to elaborate on that music video, but just imagine every member of society at their workplace fist pumping and just looking energized. I felt so tired watching that. I was tired and old. And
Episode 7.
We have an extra special episode of RFA Insider in honor of Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander Heritage Month.
Well, among the Asian American activist community, the author of the Joy Luck Club book, Amy Tan, is seen as a very problematic figure for casting all her male Asian characters as evil womanizers and things like that. And
my only experience with Amy Tan, I haven't read her books, but whenever I'd write about like my mom or something for like English class, my teacher would be like, "Oh, I love it. It's just like Amy Tan."
Yeah. But that movie, there were some good aspects of it, like how she captured like overbearing parents and like the generational conflict was what the whole point of it was.
Yeah.
But she seemed to like overgeneralize the
But again,
Yep.
right, back then there was so few. So
Right.
few kind of content or books or
Right.
films that would
Right.
punch through. Then they would become reference points.
Yeah,
because
for
there was
sure.
nothing else for people to reference
Right,
to.
but see, the thing with the Joy Luck Club is that people were holding it up here. Like, this is the Chinese American experience because
Right.
it was the only thing that was out there, this book or this movie,
Yes.
right? And so I think when we say we have a representation, quote unquote, problem, is that there should be more and more diverse stories than just this one that everybody holds up
But,
on a pedestal.
you know, I guess that's where it was starting. You know, the
Yeah,
representation.
you have to start somewhere.
You got
of
to
course,
start somewhere.
Of course. And I just wanted to comment that even though Boer has a different opinion, it's not any less valid than any of our opinions.
No.
And a lot of times, what people will do is whenever people raise an issue, when Asian Americans raise an issue, they'll go to people in Asia and say, like, well, these people didn't have a problem with it. Like, if you remember the movie Ghost in the Shell, and that had
Scarlett Johansson.
Scarlett
Is that the one?
Johansson playing a role that should have been an Asian woman if they're going off of the anime it was based on. And so, like, a lot of people in America were like, no, I watched that anime when I was growing up and it was formative for me. How dare you cast a white actress in that role? And then they go to Japan and ask a few people there, like, well, how do you feel about Scarlett Johansson doing this role? And they're like, oh, it doesn't bother me. I think it's cool. It shows that we can have diversity in our stories. And then they say, see, real Japanese people are not offended by this. So you people who aren't even Japanese or aren't even, quote unquote, really Asian are having a problem with it.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I don't think that people should use the narrative of Asians not in the U.S. to discount the narrative of other Asians in the U.S. I mean, everybody's viewpoint is valid and has its own merit. Episode 8. It's May, we brought in Max Avery, the Deputy Director of the Lao Service, to discuss RFA's recent shift from traditional Lao to modern Lao. And as we said in the introduction, modern Lao became the standard in Laos in 1975. So what was happening in Laos in 1975 that ushered in this change?
Well, before 1975,
Yes.
Laos was divided, was in the middle of a war, which is a part of Vietnam War.
Yes.
So it's divided in two parts. In eastern part, occupied by the communists, and the western part was occupied by the pro-democracy forces. And in the eastern part, the communists used the new version of Lao language since probably 1950.
Oh, really? Okay.
So when they took over the power, the whole country in 1975, they used the new Lao language since then.
I see.
In the whole country, instead of just the eastern part of the country. So in Laos right now, I believe that almost 100%, of course, they use new Lao language. So when they read, especially our content, our news and stories, RFA Lao Service news and story, they have time to understand. They have time to read, because they say that all the words, stick together, close together.
Oh, yeah.
And they don't spell like clearly, separately.
Right.
For example, I have a story to tell. When I went to Laos, probably 5 years ago, and then I went to visit my sisters, a lot of sisters, and then my nieces and nephew, and I asked my nieces and nephew whether or not they read, RFA Lao Service content, news and story. They said, no, we can, because the way you guys write is difficult to read.
Wow.
And all the words, clustered together.
Episode 9. To a special Pride-themed episode of RFA Insider.
That's right. And for today's action-packed extra special episode, we've brought in a panel to discuss personal experiences of either identifying as LGBTQIA+ or covering LGBTQIA+ issues.
My challenge to news organizations today is be less boring. Like LGBTQIA stories, come on, just the fact that someone is in the LGBTQIA community, not interesting enough. Talk to me about their skills. Talk to me about what they've done. Talk to me about what makes what makes the person you're featuring, what makes the group that you're talking about special. I think that's one of the ways that we can get beyond some of some of the challenges is to talk about, what sort of accomplishments individuals have, and and how there are people within this community who are making the world better every day.
When you're talking about somebody's skills or accomplishments, maybe talking about the orientation isn't completely necessary. Do you know what I mean?
100%.
Like, so for example, you take somebody like Megan Rapinoe, who's like one of the most prolific women's soccer players ever. She's a lesbian.
Yeah.
But like every interview is not going to be like, oh, so tell me about being lesbian. It's going to be like, well, what were you thinking when you scored that amazing goal against China or Brazil or whoever? So
yeah,
I mean,
exactly what you just said.
Episode 10. This is Thich Minh Tue. He's a Vietnamese monk that's gone viral for his barefoot pilgrimage across the country. But is he really a monk? He certainly has all the trappings of a monk. The shaven head, the alms bowl, the long flowing robes, but he's not part of the official state-sanctioned Vietnam Buddhist Sangha. In fact, he doesn't consider himself to be a monk. He's just a man who lives an ascetic lifestyle and strives to follow by the Buddhist teachings. So basically a monk. So what exactly is it about this story that seems to resonate with the Vietnamese public?
The problem is there is only one Buddhist church that is recognized by the government and
I see.
Run by the government as well. But this monk, he said that, oh, I'm not a monk and I don't belong to any church. I am just a follower of Buddha, trying to do what he teach. So people found him so authentic and so humble. So I guess his background, the way he practiced Buddhism, is so different from the rest of the Buddhist church that is monopolizing the practice of Buddhism in the country. That's why people find him so fascinating.
Episode 11
of a rock formation
Yes.
that the YouTubers thought looked like the back of Thich Minh Tue's head.
It kind of does, yeah.
Yeah, it's like a very round rock balancing on like another more sloped rock.
And I guess the bottom rock is supposed to be his shoulders and body, and the top rock is his head.
Right.
Right.
So the two YouTubers who uploaded this video end up getting dragged in by the police, confessed to their crime, and then
what crime?
each get
What crime?
fined $200 USD.
For what?
They also had to delete their video.
So they posted the video on social media or just on YouTube?
On YouTube.
And then they said, hey, this rock looks like Thich Minh Tue. Was that?
Yeah, something along the lines of,
goodness.
Don't you think that looks like Thich Minh Tue?
Okay, so I mean, part of the story had been that people were posting about his pilgrimage on social media and they get punished for that, which that's terrible in itself. But if that's the rule, then why can you get punished for just talking about rocks? That I don't understand. Like,
now it's time for a little break in the clips for
Podcast Free Asia. So we've just heard clips from the first 11 episodes of 2024. Wow, we covered a lot in the first half. What would you say was the highlight for you, Amy?
I would say maybe our Pride Month themed episode.
Okay.
The roundtable with our three guests. So they were speaking on, growing up LGBTQ in Asia, working as reporters and being out in the newsroom.
Mm-hmm. Pho Qua, he came out as the first...
His claim to fame is first openly gay Burmese journalist.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. That episode was very groundbreaking, and a lot of people actually did compliment us on that, at least by word of mouth.
Yeah, I liked it because it felt like something only we at RFA could have done or shared.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, well, for me... I like the other double episode that we did for Asian American Heritage Month, and that was episodes 7A and 7B. And I just wanted to say that episode was somewhat cathartic for me because I, as a biracial Asian American, I was able to have that kind of earnest discussion with the three of you. And not once did any of you say oh, well, you're not really Asian, so that's why you have that opinion that disagrees with mine. Because I guess once I started identifying as an Asian American myself, there was a lot of pushback on that. And with people constantly questioning my legitimacy to speak on certain topics and issues because they didn't consider me to be Asian or quote unquote Asian enough, so that they thought my opinion wasn't actually legitimate. But of course, granted, we were for the most part in agreement on that episode. I don't think we really had that much disagreement with each other. And also, I think you and Charlie and Boer are very mature compared to high school and college kids and then later internet trolls. So I think that goes with the territory too, but it was just kind of soothing for my soul to have a conversation, an intelligent conversation with 3 other Asian Americans about Asian American issues.
Yeah, and I think like you can see from our discussion as well, like we've come such a long way in terms of like representation.
Yes.
Like, what is Asia America?
Right. Totally.
So on.
But another thing I wanted to highlight from the first half of RFA Insider was this clip when we were talking about the moon landings. Today's conspiracy theory is about the 1969 moon landing.
Okay.
Okay.
Were you alive for this, Eugene?
No, no, I'm not that old, thanks.
Just wondering.
The reason we're bringing up conspiracy theories is because this comes from the Asia Fact Check Lab, which we featured on episode 4.
Yes,
episode 4. And so in China, they recently had the successful launch on May 3rd of the Chang'e 6 unmanned space probe, which is going to the moon. And there are a new wave of rumors questioning the credibility of the U.S. Apollo manned lunar landings. Those have swept all over Chinese social media. So there are 5 separate pieces of evidence that the Asia Fact Check Lab found and debunked or said were valid. And number 5, this is my favorite one.
Okay.
There's an interview with Buzz Aldrin. Do you know who Buzz Aldrin is?
Yes.
Okay, who's he?
He was the man who walked on the moon?
Well, he was one of them, yes. He wasn't the first. The first was...
Lance Armstrong?
Lance Armstrong's a bicyclist. Neil Armstrong.
Yes.
Okay. That's funny.
We're going to cut that out.
No, I'm not going to cut that. That's great.
You're never going to let me live that down, are you?
Well, you just have to get me back sometime. But let's get on to the second half. Let's discuss some of the things you'll be hearing from episode 12 to 22.
Did someone say panda?
Let's get back to the clips. Episode 12.
Story on the rundown. We're going to return to space and the Chang'e 6 mission.
Oh, again.
And this is featuring a quick and easy debunking from Asia Fact Check Lab. So it's fake news about fake news, if you will.
Fake news about fake news.
We're getting meta.
Yes.
A few Chinese social media users shared a screenshot of a BBC News report that says that the Chinese spaceship abused aliens on the moon. So this screenshot spread after China's robotic lunar mission, the Chang'e 6, completed its mission of collecting samples from the far side of the moon.
Okay.
So the whole point of this fake news about fake news was to discredit Western media. Look at this bogus story that they're spreading about us.
Wait, I'm getting something. This just in. Breaking news. Lance Armstrong is safe.
Oh.
He is unharmed by the Chang'e 6 space mission. He's okay. Lance Armstrong is okay. He's checked in. He's doing fine on the moon.
Thank God.
Okay. All right, go on, please. Sorry, I didn't mean to take away from your reporting of this.
Okay.
Episode 13. So I'm curious. Every time that I've ever been in any situation around Uyghurs, even if it's just a social thing, politics is very heavily involved in that. I'm sure that there are events where Uyghurs just meet each other and don't talk about the situation and just socially.
Yeah, during weddings. Weddings will be just celebration of life and family. And can be less political, I think. Mm-hmm. But it also depends. Let's say if you got married. Let's say if I got married in America and my parents cannot come.
Okay.
My dad is detained. So that in itself is also another political situation because of the Chinese government's restriction and the retaliation towards my work. They will not let my father to go overseas and come attend my wedding. So that can be political. So being Uighur, it's hard not to be political when you are born into politics itself.
Episode 14. And today on RFA Insider, we've got an extra special double episode featuring parts 1 and 2 of an interview with North Korean escapee siblings Sohyun and Hyunsung Lee.
I think the North Korean people, escaped North Korea, they don't want to be called as defector because it means someone I think it has bad meaning. In general. So they want to be called in neutral term like escapee. Personally, I want to be called Korean from North Korea or Korean from Pyongyang but I think the correct term for my father and me and those people who actually seek a political asylum should be kind of asylee.
Asylee?
Yes.
We haven't even considered that term. Wow.
Another one for the
or
mix.
asylum seeker, perhaps.
But in general, like North Korean escapee should be using the term escapee. It's more neutral approach, and then seen as the middle ground. I think the term is more used to describe humanizing the escape process and knowledge, the risk involved without imposing a label that they might carry unintended implications. So ultimately, the most important thing is to recognize the humanity of those who have escaped North Korea and to understand each person's story is unique. And the terms we use should reflect the complexity and encourage empathy and support for those who have risked everything for a chance at freedom.
Episode 15.
We go offbeat with the Khmer service.
And today we're discussing Cambodian strongman Hun Sen passing power off to his son Hun Manet.
I don't think that Hun Manet can survive without Hun Sen. The reason is that he have basically no credibility in terms of helping Cambodia. In my opinion, I think he's just a spoiled son of a prime minister. He grew up with a silver spoon in his mouth. Everything is being, handed to him, including the prime ministership.
Look back, Hun Sen. Hun Sen previously said that he will rule until he's 90. And the reason why he rushed to hand over the prime ministership to his son, because he knows that if he die, his son won't be able to take that position, because there is a big internal conflict between the CPP.
So
Episode 16.
Story from Asia Fact Check Lab.
Oh, cool.
Which reviewed a claim that 10% of Taiwan's population is actually ethnically Japanese.
Really?
Yes.
So is that true? No, I'm just kidding.
Well, we're about to find out.
Yes, we're going to find out.
So Victor Gao is the vice president of this Beijing-based think tank, the Center for China and Globalization. And he's previously worked for China's Ministry of Foreign Affairs, but he's best known for being former Chinese leader Deng Xiaoping's English interpreter.
Ah, okay.
So this was like in the 80s.
Right.
So this August, Gao appeared on Al Jazeera, and he made the claim that 10% of the Taiwanese population is descended from Japanese settlers. In the interview, Gao said, and I quote, "Now, if you really do your homework, you will realize that those diehard Taiwanese separatists include many of these Japanese Taiwanese." So our fact check lab followed up with Gao, and he explained that his claims were based on 3 visits he took to Taiwan. And he said he talked to lots of people in politics and business.
Okay, and so he came with the 10% figure from
talking to
just
people
talking
in Taiwan.
to people, and they're like, "Yeah, it's 10% totally." And he's like,
So
"Oh,
he said,
that sounds plausible."
Bro, just trust me.
Just trust me. Okay. Well, I mean, that doesn't quite work. I guess they could do a 23andMe on everybody there, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, who knows what that would reveal.
According to Taiwanese government reports, after Japan lost Taiwan, roughly 300,000 Japanese settlers were repatriated back to Japan.
Okay.
And there were some exceptions made, but it wasn't that many. So at the end of it all, only 755 Japanese individuals. So that's Japanese nationals and Okinawans.
Okay, and that's 755 people that remained on Taiwan.
Yes.
So from that, what's the current population of Taiwan? Do we know?
Oh, that's a very good question. But
Okay.
10%, I believe, was, fact check me on this, it's 2 billion?
Okay, well, I can't edit and fact
2
check.
million?
Okay, well, then I guess, 10%, if it's 2 million, would be 200,000.
It
right?
was a significant chunk.
Right, and so we're saying that from these 755 people, that somehow 200,000 people are supposed to be existing today. So they're very prolific.
Yes, clearly.
Let's just say that. Okay.
So,
all right, the present-day population of Taiwan is 23.42 million. We got a little confused with numbers there. So 10% of that would be 2.34 million people. So from those remaining Japanese, they begat 2 million people in order to get to 10%. Episode 17.
Amy, and first up today, we go offbeat with RFA Cantonese to talk about the past 10 years in Hong Kong since the Umbrella Revolution. Do you think there's any opportunity for yet another round of protests or uprising by Hong Kongers, or do you think there's no chance anymore?
Who would want to take the risk?
Yeah.
So because now you have numerous laws that criminalized any acts of dissent. Since the implementation of the Hong Kong National Security Law and then the Article 23, 249 people have been arrested for alleged national security offenses. 137 of these cases have been formally charged. The conviction rate of all these cases that were charged is 80%. So if you are a Hong Kong resident who have the right mind, you do not want to cause any trouble and get yourself entangled with the national security law. These national security offenses are harsh and they're very effective at quelling dissent.
Episode
So
18.
are the pandas then just a symbol of the health of a relationship between two countries? Let's take a look backward at the history of China's panda diplomacy with the United States.
It all starts in the 1970s. No. I said the 1970s. All right, that's better. While having dinner during a state visit to Beijing, China in February 1972, First Lady Pat Nixon told Chinese Premier Jimmy Lai how she was fond of pandas. Following that first state visit, the premier presented the American people with 2 pandas as a gesture of goodwill. In return, President Nixon presented the people of China with
bald eagles?
2 musk oxen.
Oh.
Ling Ling and Xing Xing arrived at the National Zoo that April to much fanfare.
On behalf of the people of the United States, I am pleased to be here and accept the precious gift of the pandas from the government of the People's Republic of China. And I think pandemonium is going to break out right here at the zoo. Thank you very much.
It wasn't until the totally radical 1980s that the panda pair mated for the first time. For some reason, birthing pandas in captivity wasn't working.
In 1989, the whole world had its eyes on China. After months of protests in Beijing's Tiananmen Square, the government declared martial law and sent troops to take the square in what is now referred to as the Tiananmen Square Massacre.
After hours of shooting and facing a line of troops, the crowd is still here. They're shouting, "Stop the killing and down with the government."
The event would be a blemish on China's international image, which the pandas had up to this point helped clean up.
Episode 19. U.S. foreign policy in Asia and how it will be similar or different under Trump's second administration. So are you up for that, Alex?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
It's a big task.
Yeah.
So as the State Department consultant, Alex has been keeping up with foreign policy towards Asia during the final years of the Biden administration. And looking forward, we can expect that this election will have sweeping ramifications for many of our broadcast areas, and especially China. So let's start our discussion there with China.
I think over the last 4 years, we've seen the Biden White House focus on being cautious but firm with China. So they've tried to build stronger alliances with U.S. allies like South Korea, Japan, Australia, even India, to try to kind of box in China a little bit if it ever wanted to be very aggressive. I think with Trump, there's a lot more question marks about how he'll approach things. I think if we look back to his first term, if you'd said, Trump is going to threaten nuclear war with North Korea or Trump will be best friends with Kim Jong-un, both of those statements would have been correct. So it's very hard to kind of picture like how he will approach things. But the certain thing is that he's not going to be so focused on this institutional alliance building that Biden has been focused on. He's going to be more focused on himself as the deal maker.
Oh, I see. So in a way, then, it would be almost as if rather than forging alliances with the neighboring countries, it would be more about the interpersonal relationship between him and Xi Jinping. That might be more of the focus, you're saying?
Yeah, certainly. I think he'll take a very transactional approach to things. It's almost inconceivable, for example, that the Biden White House would ever cut Taiwan loose, but I don't think it's inconceivable that Trump would loosen U.S. support for Taiwan and if it ever could lead to a deal that he was seeking with China.
Who do you think is first in line to be Secretary of State in the second Trump administration?
A name that keeps getting floated is Marco Rubio. who people remember Trump once called Little Marco, but who has since he's taken him under his wing.
Episode 20. And today on RFA Insider, we'll speak with Mark Clifford, who's the president of the Committee for Freedom in Hong Kong, about the trial of media mogul Jimmy Lai. Okay, I've heard that this trial that he's currently embroiled in is it's been described as a sham trial. So what do you expect? Do you agree with that, first of all? And second, what do you expect the outcome of this trial to be?
Yeah, I think it's a sham trial, a show trial. To call it a kangaroo court, I think would be a slur on kangaroos. He's going to be guilty. I mean, it's just, it's a foregone conclusion. He is seen by the leaders in Beijing all the way to the very top to Xi Jinping. He's seen as the mastermind, the black hand of the protests in Hong Kong. It was almost as if the national security law that he's being tried under was written for Jimmy Lai, to get Jimmy Lai. So I, of course, expect a guilty verdict, and I expect a lengthy sentence for a guy who's 76 years old. It's tantamount to a death sentence unless the international campaign to free him is successful, which I think it will be.
Should he be convicted? What would that then say about press freedoms in Hong Kong?
Well, I think we know where press freedom stands in Hong Kong, which is it's a thing of the past. It's receding into the rearview mirror. I was on the board of directors, luckily not in Hong Kong, the second time that they raided Apple Daily, sent 500 police in, rounded up a number of our employees, 6 of whom, besides Jimmy Lai, are still in jail, even though they've pled guilty, being held hostage. I mean, there's no more press freedom in Hong Kong. You can be mildly critical around the edges, perhaps, but press freedom is no more, sadly.
Episode 21.
Today on RFA Insider, we start in South Korea, where President Yoon Suk-yeol declared martial law, only to have the National Assembly overturn it a few hours later. If something similar were to happen where Kim Jong-un were to declare martial law, could others in the government cancel that? Are there mechanisms?
Absolutely not. And I brought up a article written by one of our RFA's current service journalists, by Song Han-min. She had a quote here that so she has a quote from North Korean officials in China who witnessed all this event unfolding, right? And then North Korean officials said, in my country, being North Korea, in my country, the highest dignity is more powerful than the Constitution. Highest dignity referring to the great Kim Jong-un, the great leader. So, So I like that statement, right? That the basis of democracy is the rule of law.
Right.
That no one is above the law, and that law is applied equally to everyone, even for the governors, right? But in North Korea, Kim Jong-un is more powerful than the Constitution, and the word of Kim Jong-un is the law of the land. So there is no mechanism in North Korea, right, for people to assemble freely. There is no press freedom in North Korea. There is no democratic tradition in North Korea. And without it, the people can. There is no legal tool for the people to protest against the government and against the leaders.
Episode 22. Double offbeat, talking to RFA's investigative team who broke the news revealing the identity of an alleged Chinese spy who had ties to British royalty.
Double offbeat?
What was very exciting is RFA, my team, actually was able to break the name of this alleged spy. His name is Yang Tunbo, and he's a Chinese businessman who has been in the UK for quite a long time and had stunning access to, members of the top echelons of British society. We also uncovered that he had been photographed at least once with the former Prime Minister Theresa May and twice with the former Prime Minister David Cameron, whom he actually said in an interview to Chinese state television that he met at a 10 Downing Street party while David Cameron was in office. So it's a pretty big news story, pretty big scoop that we're very, very pleased to have been able to get and had some sort of subsequent follow-ups too.
Yeah, I mean, Yang, for his part, states that he's done nothing wrong, and that was part of the reason why he lifted the
anonymity order. I know,
order.
It's such a mouthful, isn't it? Yeah, and he's said that he's built a life as a private citizen and an entrepreneur in the UK. It's his second home, and he would never do anything to to harm the country. And to his, there is something to that, right? He may or may not have thought that what he was doing was wrong.
I mean, I hear that, but when you are getting instructions from the CCP on how to talk to certain people, I mean, that kind of sounds like, I mean, you'd have to be kind of not smart to not realize that they're trying to get you to do something on their behalf, right? I mean,
but I think that kind of misunderstands like the relationship in China, right? Like, again, under the regime, if you're a business person, if you're a person who's trying to cultivate any kind of cross-cultural ties, which is a thing that, is a good thing, right? Generally. Yeah. There's no way that you're not going to hear from the state. It's not a society and a regime in which you can just operate independently the way that we do. So I do think there is something to that.
It's very, very nuanced.
It's very nuanced. Yes, exactly.
And that about wraps it up for what we hope is the first of many years of RFA Insider. But we'll be back with much more RFA Insider in 2025. For Amy Lee, I'm Eugene Huang. Happy New Year to all.
See ya.
Like what you heard today? It would really mean a lot to us if you would like, subscribe, or follow this podcast. You can also share it on social media or even text messages. Feeling frisky? Give us a rating on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or elsewhere. Goodbye for now, and we'll see you here for the next episode of RFA Insider. You sure? All right.